You'll notice on my YouTube channel, I've really not talked a whole lot about the taxes in Alaska, and that's not because we have exorbitantly high taxes or it's something that I'm afraid of mentioning to people because it's going to scare them away. I just don't really like talking about taxes because I hate really talking about something that is so mundane and thinking that someone would move to a state just to save a little bit of money on taxes. But it is important to people, and so we're going to talk about that. By the way, my name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska. My mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family. And before we get started, like, subscribe, throw some comments down in the comment section so I can feature you on future videos. And let's go and jump into today's video. Now, there are a lot of tax advantages to living up here in Alaska, and it really does go a long way to kind of bridging the gap with our cost of living compared to lower 48. Some of the taxes we don't have up here is the income tax, the inheritance tax, the estate tax, the statewide sales tax, and actually there are some communities who don't even have a sales tax just for their specific community. So as you can see, there's really not a whole lot of taxes up here that are directly applicable to the rank and file, and the majority of the taxes up here are in fact borne by people who are property owners. So property tax is really going to be the lion's share of how they collect taxes up here and create revenue for the state or communities, whatever else it is that we're in. Okay, now when I say that the vast majority of taxes raised in Alaska is by property taxes, I mean it is like the vast majority. Like in 2014, of the $1.66 billion that were raised in revenues, $1.34 billion of that was actually raised through property taxes. So that shows like without property taxes, there's really nothing that the state or the local governments can do to really raise revenue for themselves. Now, one of the biggest questions I'm sure I'm going to get right off the bat is, okay, well, how are the property taxes determined? And that's really going to be determined at the local level, looking at the municipality or the borough. And it's going to come down to what specific services it is that you're receiving or what new project it is we're paying for. If we're paying for, a brand new project at such and such school, congratulations, everybody. The value of your house just went up $50,000 according to the assessor. All right, now how this rate is actually determined and how we determine what somebody's assessed value is the tax assessor looks at the property, and keep in mind, usually they're not going to the property itself. Sometimes they might, usually they don't. They don't have access to the MLS because Alaska is a non-disclosure state, and so they can't just go to the MLS and say, oh, they paid $500,000. Okay, the assessed value is $500,000. It is not particularly uncommon where you might have a property where you could sell it for that $500,000, but you're only paying taxes for about $400,000 just because the tax man is not allowed to use information that they didn't get directly from the seller. In other words, they can't just, unless they call the seller up or send them a letter and the seller says, I'm paid this amount on it, then they have to find other means in order to justify the assessed value. So that's kind of something that does protect us to a certain extent on paying too high. But how we come up with that value, how we come up with the rate that you're going to be paying, is they take a look at the assessed value and then they multiply it by the meal rate, which is determined by the municipality. And the meal rate is really going to be determined by any number of variables, again, kind of coming down to what you're paying for, and what new projects are coming up, what bonds we're trying to pay for, so on and so forth. So as you can imagine, the effective property tax in Alaska, just with not really having any other tax base to create revenue, is for the most part going to be higher in Alaska than it's going to be in some other places. So in Alaska, it's going to be approximately 1.07% is going to be kind of our property tax value, and it goes up to about 17%, which is going to be higher than the 0.99% that you're going to find in most other places, or kind of the median average place in the lower 48. And unfortunately, what we run into is we have a lot of people who rent up here, and their bonds and everything that come out, and people see that and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're okay with raising the property on tax property owners. That's perfectly fine. I'm renting. It's whatever. I'm fine with them paying that. It's just an extra couple $100 a year. Well, the problem is you pile all those on after years and years and years of doing that, and you can start seeing it starts to hurt a little bit. I think I pay $4,000 a year to the Anchor School District, so I'm getting a little tapped out there, guys, not going to lie. But the problem is with the tenants going and just saying, oh yeah, that's fine, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that. And they just have the logic and the assumption of, I'm never going to pay that. What they don't realize is where they're renting is going to become more highly taxed, and that cost does end up trickling down to them and the way of the rent increasing probably the next year. So everyone ends up paying a share here. All right, let's go and take a quick break here real quick. For those who've been watching for a little bit, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, where I talk with people who've recently moved up here. So do make sure you go check that out. Link for that is in the description section down below, where I interview people who've moved up here, and we're talking about their tips, their tricks, their story, everything about actually moving up here. And now it's that time of the video where we review one of the comments in the comments section and I respond to it. So this one today, it just says, love the area. We're talking about Eagle River. Love the area with how the market is currently and heading forwards. Would you recommend to buy with a mortgage or rent a house in Eagle River for the next 2 to 3 years? You know, that is a great question. As a real estate professional, you might think I would just always say, oh, always buy, always buy, always buy. And that's just not me acting in your best interest, which is the responsibility of fiduciary. I would need to know a little bit more information, like what it is that you guys are wanting to do long term. Like, do we know for dang sure, like Alaska is going to be where you guys are going to be staying? Is this a PCS situation, like with you being with the military and you're here for 2 to 3 years and you know for sure you're moving on? In which case, would you be happy with just renting the property, or would you be in a position where you would have to sell it immediately afterwards? There's a lot of variables that really go into it. As a rule, I usually prefer to be absolutely no less than 3 years, just because whether we're in a quickly appreciating market or not, like things do happen, hiccups do happen. And if you're only here for about 3 years or less than 3 years, like that doesn't really give you much margin for error as far as building equity and building a little comfort into it, because it does actually cost money to sell a house. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but I guess it is to some people. So yeah, just make sure you're setting yourself up for success by giving yourself as much time as possible, but also reach out to me. Let's talk a little bit and hear what some of the important variables are that we couldn't really get into in the comments section. Now, without further ado, let's go and jump into the rest of today's video. Now, if you're watching all of the stuff that we've talked about so far about property taxes, you're probably feeling a little distraught that, oh, well, the property taxes are just so high and you just can't get away from them. There are exceptions of things you can do that's going to give you some waivers. So number one is that you can actually get $150,000 knocked off your assessed value if you are 65 or older. So that is going to be available. So if that is the age range you find yourself in, you know, you're in luck. You can go ahead and pay less on your property taxes. The second thing you can get some property tax reduction on is if you are a disabled veteran, and this is if you are 50% or more disabled. Don't crucify me if that's not exactly correct. That is what I saw. So 50% or more disabled, you are liable to have property tax reduction, I think of about $50,000 if I recall correctly. Okay. The third discount you can get on your property taxes, this is going to be if you are specifically in Anchorage, and this is for a discount of up to $75,000 or up to 40% of whatever your home's value is if it is your primary residential space. So in other words, if you have a bunch of rental properties, you are paying 100% of your taxes on that. That is no discount for that. But if this is your primary place you live, well, congratulations. You can get some kind of discount on that specific property. All right, last but not least, last big discount that I can see here, at least from what I was able to find with my research. I'm sure there are discounts for a bunch of other small communities out there, but Anchorage, you can actually get another $150,000 discount on your property taxes if you are a widow or widower of a service member. So if that is kind of the boat you find yourself in, the situation, then, luckily Anchorage does have some tools there to help you kind of make ends meet and make your property taxes a little bit lower. So if that's something that you find yourself in, do just make sure you explore that and make sure you take advantage of it. Now, this has been my video talking about taxes in Alaska. I don't really think this one's going to be a really popular video, but it's going to be important anyway. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.